West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Coming up this hour, DJT has declared war, Billy, on voting machines and mail-in ballots.
Oh, goody.
Let's ride this bull, my friend. We're going to get into this hour.
Because never mind. This will get interesting.
Donald Trump has launched what he's calling a movement to eliminate both mail-in ballots and voting machines ahead of the 2026 midterms, calling them fraudulent, inaccurate, and very expensive. He claims they're harming election integrity and promises an executive order in the works. Democrats are not holding back. We'll get to that and want to hear directly from you. But now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Hey, good morning. Hope you're having a good one. Terrific Tuesday. 71 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 92 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story.
No, I thought I'd do first let them meet. You know, they haven't been exactly best friends. They haven't gotten along very well. And I called President Putin yesterday, and I do have a good relationship, but it only matters if we get things done. Otherwise, I don't care about the relationship. I do have a good relationship with him, but I want to get things done. I've solved 7 wars. We ended.
There's cautious optimism from DJT and European leaders about a deal to end the Ukraine-Russia war. 47 played host to Ukraine's President Zelensky, European leaders, and the head of NATO on Monday at the White House to try to hammer out a deal. DJT on Fox News this morning.
7 wars. I thought this would be one of the easier ones, and this has turned out to be the toughest one. India, Pakistan, these were big ones, and also all big ones, and some going for 31, 32 years, one for 35 years. The Congo, think of that, the Congo and Rwanda for 35 years. I got that one done. I got them all done, but this one is the one that is the most difficult, and I thought it would be an easy one. So I hope President Putin is going to be good, and if he's not, it's going to be a rough situation. And I hope that President Zelensky will do what he has to do. He has to show some flexibility also.
And there were reports of Russian drone attacks last night over Ukraine. Hamas says it'll accept a ceasefire plan put forward by mediators from Qatar and Egypt, but Israel may not. The negotiations have come as Israel prepares to launch a massive assault on an occupation of Gaza City, as this war is now nearly 2 years old. Denver laying off 171 employees as part of a plan to reduce a multi-million-dollar budget deficit. City Council President Amanda Sandoval and other members, including Serena Gonzalez-Gutierrez, shared their reaction to the layoffs at a meeting on Monday afternoon.
It's never easy to get a phone call that says you no longer have a job.
This really hurts. Families are going to be hurt because of financial decisions of the city.
Mayor Johnston's office announced the number of layoffs in a letter sent to the city employees on Monday. The letter also indicated that 665 currently vacant jobs will be eliminated and 92 positions will be funded by other sources. If you don't put citizens first, this is what happens. Get what you vote for. And never, ever vote for a Democrat again if you want Denver and Colorado back.
Isn't that
Jeff?
the line? I mean, goodness, I'm clipping that.
I believe it, don't you?
I did this video where I posted on X in the Tale of Two Cities. And both faced illegal immigrants coming into their communities, Denver and Aurora.
Yep.
Denver said, we heart immigrants. They make our country and our communities more vibrant, and we're going to incorporate them. And over 40,000, about 42,000 came. They spent $356 million on them. The city of Aurora, and I played the video of Danielle Drinsky going, no, we're going to put our people first. The money from taxpayers goes to services for taxpayers.
Yep.
That's it. And there's a great post from Mike Kaufman who says, yeah, we're going to face a little bit of a budget shortfall. It's not nearly what Denver's facing, but not a single employee is going to be laid off as a result of it.
Amen.
Look at that. Look at that. Two cities. One said illegal immigrants first. The other one said citizens first. And there are people employed by this city, one city, Aurora, the other city, Denver, losing their jobs. Money is just not infinite. Guys, I'm sorry. I mean, you just run out of it at a certain point, and it's about priorities. And Democrats constantly, over and over and over again, prioritize criminals and illegal immigrants over their own citizens.
Absolutely.
Every freaking time.
Every time. And Jeff, here's what happens when, what politics sound like. When you forget about your culture and your city and what you're all about, and, politics with those who don't really care about your red, white, and blue culture.
Yeah.
Virginia qabowbaa lagu dhalay laakiinse waan adopt gareynay siidarna wax badan ma joogine.
And you could probably guess where that is.
Is that Minnesota?
You got it. Minneapolis.
Really?
Minneapolis, home of the Vikings and the Twins and all those
Perfect
Scandinavians and Lutefisk and Lefse.
Perfect view of modern liberalism is Minnesota right now. Tim Walz.
Remember when Minneapolis used to be the home of the Mary Tyler Moore Show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Virginia qabowbaa lagu dhalay laakiinse waan adopt gareynay siidarna wax badan ma joogine.
So sad.
That was great audio overlay. But look at Minnesota. You got Tim Walz. You got male dancing cheerleaders, and you have
the great
Islamists that are taking over. Like that is classic progressivism right there.
Yes,
it doesn't. They don't make any sense. There's no way they should be together. Islamists and male cheerleaders? Are you kidding me?
Oh my goodness, the mix.
And they put those together.
So
the
true.
Same state.
Oh, true. What a pamphlet for Minneapolis. you have the mayoral race, and then you have the male dancer shaking his backside. Oh my goodness. Okay, I digress. I move on.
I got to get up there alongside these other leaders from ATF, Special Agent Brent Beavers, the U.S. Attorney Peter McNeely, and go on and on. There was an all-star team of leaders from across the region. We got to get up there, and as I said, lift the veil on something that was very controversial to talk about in this region a year ago.
Dave Valesky, DEA, Rocky Mountain Division, in studio with Jeff and Billy this morning. There were at least 40 undercover operations conducted in the area during an investigation after a request by the Arapahoe County Sheriff Tyler Brown. 30 arrests made. At least 8 of the people arrested are Tren de Aragua.
And what is that? TDA, Tren de Aragua. And so it was, an opportunity for us to showcase to the public the great work that's being done by not just our DE agents, but all the federal law enforcement pulling together and addressing this threat that's been really causing such grave harm to our community.
Great job by them. First college football game this Saturday in Dublin. When I think of college football, I think of Dublin, Iowa State and Kansas State. Broncos at the Saints Saturday morning also at 11. That's an hour after the college football game kicks off. Rockies, they win 4-3 tonight at Coors, 640. 70 in Aurora, 71 in Louisville, and 72 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. God, I used to love that show. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Warm temperatures, partly to mostly sunny skies. And for today and Wednesday, while we can't rule out a couple of isolated late-day thunderstorms, there won't be many. Near 90 today, low to mid-90s Wednesday. Hot mid to upper 90s Thursday, nights in the low to mid-60s. Thunderstorm chances go up Friday and into the weekend, and cooler. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, Donald Trump has launched what he's calling a movement to eliminate both mail-in ballots and voting machines ahead of the 2026 midterms, calling them fraudulent, inaccurate, and very expensive. He claims they're harming election integrity and promises an executive order is in the works. Democrats didn't hold back. California Governor Gavin Newsom slammed the effort as a desperate bid to manipulate election outcomes. Shocking that the Democrats are concerned about that. In Arizona, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes fired back bluntly, saying he would tell Trump to pound sand, and warned his plan would face immediate legal challenge. And he emphasized that states aren't obligated to obey federal dictates on elections. Meanwhile, legal scholars and constitutional experts point out a major problem. Under the Constitution, states, not the president, control how elections are conducted and counted. So the fight lines are clear. Is this a justified push for true election honesty or a federal overreach that threatens voter access? Are we trading speed for security or vice versa? If any states resists, what then? Can Trump force them? Will the court step in? Will voters be caught in the middle of a legal and political showdown? Would love to hear from you. Call in with your take. Are we safer with paper ballots only? Or are machines critical to keeping our elections efficient and fair? The debate's heating up, and your voice matters. We want to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Bill, Newsom saying that this is election manipulation. Do you agree?
Well, no. I mean, manipulation, I think, based on narrative. Sure. Yeah, I could get there. But this, to me, is just Donald Trump trying to flex his authoritarian muscle. This is just him wanting to take over something he can't and continue a narrative that is false. The whole idea that mail-in voting can't be trusted in fraudulent elections and all the other long string of BS that we've been dealing with for 5 years now. That's just what this is. This is giving more air to all those conspiracy theorists. And yes, conspiracy theorists, because to a T, every opportunity those election conspiracy theorists have had to show up in court and to put the receipts on the table, the ones that they bragged about, the ones that they were so excited about revealing in court, haven't shown up. They haven't produced the receipts in a single one of these cases in which they could. That's weird. Even here locally, the Mike Lindell case, They didn't argue in the court that Mike had the proof or was telling the truth. Didn't argue that. That's weird. Very, very weird. So the issue for me is that I don't see where the problem is. This seems to be a solution that is assuming a problem. I haven't seen any major research studies show that there is a problem with large-scale fraud in our elections due to mail-in voting. I haven't seen that. We can even go back to, oh, yes, did I hear about, oh, my gosh, that amazing recount they were going to be doing in Arizona. We had local legislators go down there to see what was happening. They were going to investigate. And they came here, and, they were convinced when they came on the air here at KNUS. And the audit proved more votes for Biden. That worked out well. That's the issue, is I understand that what Trump is doing, but he's just feeding a conspiracy that has become accepted truth by a group of his supporters. What he hasn't been able to do is establish the cause. He hasn't established that this actually exists. Plus a bunch of the stuff that he said during his ramblings, or not said, but posted in his ramblings about mail-in ballots when he made this declaration as an authoritarian weren't true. But,
Do you believe that our elections are more transparent than they were 25 years ago?
What do you mean by transparent? How are we defining that? What are we doing to judge whether or not they are transparent? And the reason I'm asking is you may look at it being transparent in one way, and I may view it as transparent in a different way. You and I may judge transparency differently. So help me understand what you're looking at.
I'm intrigued by the fact that it feels like our elections are more complicated, less secure, less transparent, and take longer to count than we did 25, 30 years ago when it was done paper ballots or at most voting machines. And you would know that night typically who won the presidential election. There was no counting ballots that then had to be paused and then started up again the next day. So how is it, and I'm just intrigued here, how is it that it's gotten more complicated? We know less about the process. It takes longer to count the ballots than it did back when, you barely even had electricity, let alone all these complicated voting machines today.
Well, again, the calls that were made during the 80s and 90s were done based on statistics, the same thing that we do now. It wasn't that we had all of the numbers in on that evening, from my understanding. It was that we had a large enough proportion that we then could, based on math, validly predict what the outcome is going to be. We do that here in state elections based on, how many ballots what is the percentage right now, and then where are the outstanding ballots concentrated? Based on the performance and the demographic makeup of those areas, you can statistically predict more often than not where those ballots are going to go. Again, it's broad, not down to a very small number, but it's very broad, but you can absolutely see the direction it's going. So that's kind of what we did. The other part is, years and years ago, what we are doing is we're counting more ballots. Counting more people would make things more complicated and it would take longer. The idea being, if you had 20 people show up to get in with us at the Taste of Douglas County or out next Wednesday at the IHOP down on Colorado Boulevard and I-25, if it took 20 people at the front door, and then the next time we do that, it's 60 people at the front door, it's going to take us longer to count the people. That's just it. That's just a function of population growth. The other part is that I find it very interesting that we're worried about security and accuracy, yet we want to point back to the hand counting of paper ballots, which, based on statistics, has been proven to be the least accurate method of counting them. The time in which we have the most error and the most miscounts is when we hand count the paper ballots. We had that with the count in the leadership of the Colorado GOP when they tried to do all hand ballots. We saw how effective that happened, and we saw how effective hand counting of ballots was in Arizona. They had to go back several times and redo tallies because things were mistaken. Hand counting has been proven to be the least accurate of all the measures, but yet in the name of security, we want to point to the least accurate. I don't understand that. I just don't.
Do you see any problem at all with carpet bombing the entire state with mail-in ballots?
Depends on what you mean, again, what you mean by problem. I do have some issues with it. I don't think that our voter rolls are necessarily tight enough. I don't think that we verify with other states as often as we should. I think that is a problem, but that takes time and money. I wish that system would be better. But then again, we had an imperfect system in what was called ERIC. But then post-2020 election, we had states pull out. Rather than reform the system and make it better, they decided what's going to help us have better elections. These were red states. What's going to help us have more accurate information is if we don't have the ability to cross-reference and share information across states. Again, if the goal is to prevent the people that shouldn't be voting, I question why we're pulling out of those situations and that type of an idea. The other part, though, is that within conversations with Matt Crane and others, I am sufficiently convinced that our signature verification catches more of the fake votes or potentially illegal votes than misses. And I don't see any indication that any of those possible illegal votes that get through are in a sufficient number in order to change elections. I don't see that. I don't think that the signature verification process catches all of them, but we have seen direct evidence, one of them being, things that happen in Mesa County, of things being caught based on these processes and procedures.
Yep.
So
text messages are hot on this one.
I'm
One
sure they
is
are.
ever since we've done mail-in voting, Colorado's just gotten bluer and bluer and bluer. Is that simply a coincidence in your mind?
Not necessarily a coincidence, but here's the issue is, what I question the texter on is, are you suggesting a causal relationship to the idea that mail-in ballots led this state to be more blue, or is the assumption that since we went to mail-in ballots, it's only blue because of all the cheating? What we have seen is necessarily an increase in participation, but not a vast increase. Mail-in ballots, there is a study that is cited by a lot of people that are on the left, and it's one that was done in Colorado, and they're wrong, okay? They talk about the idea that it increases voter turnout by 9 to 10%. They're wrong. That study is bad. That study used extrapolations of numbers that cannot be repeated. Normally, mail-in turnout it increases by about 3%. The interesting thing, based on research that has been done, it does not advantage one party over the other. They seem to say the same increase in both parties. Here's the other part that I would ask the question for the texter. Oh my gosh, so now we started carpet bombing the state, and we're all mail-in ballots, and now everything's gone blue. What's voter registration like in this state? Last time I checked, the Republicans are tail end Charlie. They're 3.
Yeah,
they're
behind independents and Democrats.
So what I'm looking at is this, is we have seen that Republican voter registration has contracted in the state of Colorado. And rather than asking ourselves the question, why are fewer and fewer people registered as Republicans in Colorado? Why are Republicans having a harder and harder time to get elected based on messaging? And instead we go to, it's got to be the ballots. So the conclusion has to be that
I think
you're the third most populous party based on voter registration, yet it's the ballots?
No, but
that's
I
the
think
issue?
what they're pointing out is, though, that rules change and rules matter with regards to any game, right? And rules change based upon the party that's in control. And this is fascinating to me, right? So blue states, no voter ID, mail-in ballots. Red states, vote in person, show an ID. Do the rules matter when it comes to electoral victories? Because it seems like blue states are lining up on one side with a certain set of rules, going mail-in ballots, just signature verification. Red states are going, well, no, you need to show up in person and you need to show ID. And in those cases, whatever rules are set up seem to benefit the party that's in power. So is it right to continue to allow states to make up rules independently that somehow benefit one party or another? Or should it just be universal? One rule for the entire country. This is how we're going to run our elections. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Speaking of Danny C., I love this guy. Absolutely fantastic human being. Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. He spent 40 years getting justice for people hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. So if you're hurt in an injury case, you got to call Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. Listen to this courtroom success record. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. DJT declaring war on voting machines and mail-in ballots. Can he do this? Is it constitutional, Bill? We got a question from a constitutional scholar. Actually, a call from him.
Rod Nadelson listened to the show.
Very
Shout
smart
out.
guy.
Man, look at the big Brandon Rod. Called in and basically said that to his understanding of federal law, that right now Donald Trump cannot affect change on state elections, does not have that power. But he could change how federal elections are done only if Congress grants him that authority.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, Republicans do have control, so we'll have to see if that works out. I mean, my question, I think, right before we got to the commercial break, is an interesting one. States can pretty much run the elections the way they want to. Some states saying you got to have ID. Show up in person, vote the same day. If we're going to do mail-in ballots, it's going to be absentee. Other states saying, no, like Colorado, just register to drive and we'll register you to vote. Automatic voter registration, no ID necessary, and we'll mail you a ballot. Is it right to run federal elections 50 different ways? Let's go to the phone lines. Brad, Highlands Ranch. Good morning, Brad. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Good. Hope you're doing well. What's on your mind?
Well, I hope that either Congress or Trump was able to do something about this voting system. I think it is definitely an uphill battle. The states do have some rights and some separations from the federal government. So, but I believe that Trump has created enough. He will get something done. I think the biggest issue we have here in the state of Colorado is undeliverable ballots. And what happens is somebody moves out of, let's say, Douglas County, and they move to Florida. Those particular people, their ballots are still being delivered to that mailbox. Well, during the primary, the post office knows that those people are undeliverable, okay? They figure it out during the primary. That goes on a list, okay? That list then gets organized, and then when we get into the general election, I think this is where the great steal is. I think this is where it actually happens. It's a real ballot. No one's looking for it. It's undeliverable. There is no custody to the ballot. There's no independent, Republican, unaffiliated group watching the printers, watching the post office. You can't even get people for the custody of the ballot in the post office. I think the big steal is right there, is they
Brad,
take those undeliverables.
Question for you. How do you sign the ballot?
Easy. All you got to do is have access to the DMV or the fraud that's happening with United Healthcare. 193 million people lost their signatures.
Again, that's a large scale. Again, Brad, that's somewhat of a large. You're looking for a large scale type of a steal that, again, but the idea of I'm not certain that you can core a request my signature through the DMV.
You can't.
Yeah,
you can't. You're right.
So how would you get the signature in order to affect
the same way you got the ballot? You steal it. The same way you got the ballot, you steal. These are not good people.
Hang on, Brad. I understand that, but what you're saying is I have to find somewhere with undeliverable ballots, and it would be based on my time spent in order to steal an election. It would be hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of ballots, and I have to find these individual undeliverable ballots. And then I have to cross-reference somehow that individual's name and then get their signature. And I have to do that tens of thousands of times, and I have to replicate that signature accurately enough in order to fool the machine.
So first off, there's supposed to be a custody of ballots. That's not happening. Heidi Ganahl did a story in The Voice talking about, the Rocky Mountain Voice, talking about undeliverable ballots in Douglas County. 3,000 ballots did not make it back to our clerk or recorder's office.
Yeah, but
that is a massive amount.
It is,
so that
means but it
that
doesn't mean they were voted, nor does it but I'm still working on the plan. See, this is the thing is I understand the idea, and I'm concerned as well about the undeliverable ballots. And where I started our conversation, not ours, you and I, but where Jeff and I, was I believe that we are doing just a horrible job of cross-referencing voters when they move states, move out of counties. I think that's atrocious. But what I've been convinced so far is that part, not all, but part of the backstop in this, for this inefficient system, is the voter signature verification. And that seems to be the largest hurdle to overcome in your conspiracy theory. The idea of being able to do that.
So they don't check whether it's a real signature printed with an indentation. They don't have the ability to tell if it was printed by an inkjet printer. They don't know. They do not know. The state has admitted they don't know. The county admits they don't know. And that means it can be forged by a printer.
That still means the individual has to find the voter signature for that individual ballot and has to do it tens of thousands of times. No, it isn't that easy. It isn't that easy, Brad.
It is that easy.
No, it's not.
Why do you think there's so much data fraud, and why do you think there's not so much money missing on data fraud? The data fraud isn't about money. It's about data on signatures. They steal that information off credit card companies, healthcare companies, DMV websites. They steal that stuff, and then they put it in an AI database based on precincts because it's that easy to do. And with the stroke of a button, by hitting the word enter, you can find out and lock them in line with all the undeliverables from a primary. When you get to the general election, it just does it. It's an automatic process. Through
Brad,
an easy Excel or AI process.
Brad, you can affect credit card fraud without ever having a signature. You know that. And that's a data fraud as well, without ever having that. That's unnecessary. That is completely unnecessary.
All they want
the issue is the signature.
No,
they don't. They want your ID, and they want to go out there and do other things. They're not trying to vote for you. They're trying to open up loans. They're trying to open up loans.
There's a faction out there that wants it.
Okay. Yeah, I bet a faction, but not significant. I appreciate the phone call. That's the issue. Is this fraud significant enough to impact and change our election results? I don't see it, nor has the Heritage Foundation found it.
But is the way that we're currently set up secure? I mean, I just raised this question because the system we've currently set up carpet bombs the entire state with a ballot, and oftentimes it goes to people that have moved, or you have an apartment complex that 100 people live there. It all gets just dropped in to one mail room. So, and then we've built a system where you can mail it from home, which is convenient. Yes. And a lot of Coloradans like this. About 90% either vote early or by mail. And then we rely on signature verification in order to prevent fraud. Is it enough? And is it okay for federal elections like the election for the president to have 50 different versions of how we're going to do this?
Well, the question I have is, where is the fraud? I understand the idea of is it enough, and I don't think we're doing enough on voter verification as far as have you changed? Are you registered in any other state, any other county? We're not doing enough there. But what I haven't seen is the proof of fraud. And Fox News had the opportunity.
Yeah, I know. We've gone through this. But why do we...
Newsmax just settled with Dominion.
Why do we have
they didn't walk in
50 different versions of this?
Again, but the core is
if it's all based around concern about security and transparency, and we basically allow 50 different versions of how you're going to vote in the same election.
The only way that we can say those 50 different versions isn't working is by showing the fraud. If you don't have the fraud, those 50 different versions aren't getting you a wonky result. So that's why the fraud and the results are most important. We seem to be operating off an idea of this seems bad, I don't like it, and so obviously it's fraudulent.
Well, yeah, every state does that. Every state does that. Every state goes
start at the fraud.
Colorado goes, voter ID seems bad, therefore we're not going to require it. A red state sees mail-in ballot without voter ID.
No,
that's bad.
I disagree.
So every single state gets to pick.
I disagree with that.
Good or bad.
The issue
that's
being,
the point.
No, the issue being that the argument on the voter fraud and voter ID is whether or not it will prevent fraud. So far, Colorado doesn't see voter ID necessitating voter fraud. That it does that because in order to get a ballot, you have to register, which would provide an ID. So you have to show the ID first.
You have different states that all look at the same election and go, one is good, one is bad, this is good, this is bad. And is it right when it comes to the same election to have 50 different versions of it?
All right. Results are fraudulent. It seems to work. You'd have to prove it's fraudulent before saying it doesn't work.
But you have states that are saying the way another state sets it up leads it to be fraudulent. So when Kansas, for instance, says, I don't know if Kansas requires voter ID, I'm guessing it does, but let's say Nebraska does. If Nebraska goes at the same election and says, voting without voter ID can lead to fraud. Colorado says voting without voter ID does not lead to fraud. Who's right?
This is where my journalism kicks in. I listen to both sides, and then I walk out the freaking door and look.
Right.
And
so
we have
Kansas
looked.
is wrong.
No.
Nebraska's
looked.
wrong.
Hang on. We've looked. We haven't seen large-scale voter fraud that will swing elections. There is some smaller-scale voter fraud, some of which actually did change primary results and other things. Yes. But on a large scale, we haven't seen it.
Is Nebraska wrong?
If their conclusion is without it, we have fraud, yes, they would be wrong because you'd have to prove the conclusion.
Right. And in your world, they're allowed to be wrong.
Yes. Yeah. And just like
and they're
Colorado could be allowed to be wrong too.
They're allowed to run their election and be wrong with their rules, and that's okay.
They are allowed to run their elections as they see fit based on their constituency. Yes, the states are individually allowed to do that. Yes. Yeah, I see no problem with that. Yes.
All for the same election.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I see no problem with it.
Join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text us at 720-819-5115. Guys, let's talk Colorado's best roofing. If you're like me, you know that living in Colorado means dealing with unpredictable weather. It hailed on us up in the mountains this weekend. Hail, snow, heavy winds, you name it. We've got it. That's why you need a roofing company you can trust, and that's Colorado's Best Roofing. They're local, family-owned, and have served the Denver area for over 12 years. They understand our unique climate and how to build a roof that lasts. Whether you need a repair after a storm or a whole new roof, Colorado's Best Roofing has got you covered. And here's what I really love. They offer a free, no-obligation inspection. They'll come out, take a look, and give you an honest assessment. No pressures, no gimmicks, just straight talk from the pros. Plus, they work with your insurance company to make sure you get the best coverage you deserve. So don't wait until the next big storm hits. Give Colorado's Best Roofing a call today. Here's their phone number, 303-797-ROOF. That's 303-797-7663. Or visit them at roofingcolorado.com. Call 303-797-7663. Or go to roofingcolorado.com. Trust the best, Colorado's Best Roofing. Phone lines are lighting up. Same with the text messages. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Donald Trump has declared war on voting machines and mail-in ballots. And one of the questions I'm raising is, okay, if we do it 50 different ways, I guess we're just agreeing that whether you require voter ID or not doesn't actually infringe on someone's right to vote. We can have a free and fair election 50 different ways, all for the same election. No reason for the federal government to step in, because if you're like Colorado and don't require ID, or you're like Kansas that has strict ID requirements, either way, no one's right to vote was infringed. Is that what we're saying? Let's go to the phone lines. Neil, Wheat Ridge. Good morning, Neil. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. Hope you're doing well. What's up? What's on your mind?
Well, as I mentioned to you when I called in prefacing, my two sons were married years ago, and they've been out of the state there, and they haven't lived in this state for almost 10 years. And yet every election, every primary, we still receive ballot information in their name. And I thought that the Secretary of State's office was supposed to expunge those kind of things long ago. And yet here we still get their ballots, so they're still considered listed in the state as voters. And you got to wonder that times how many thousands that might actually use those ballots, you know, family members, even though they're not in the state, to vote. I think that creates a problem in the voting system.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, Neil. The issue being you would have to be able to sign either of your two sons' signatures at a point in which it would pass the voter signature verification. And again, while I disagree that that should be like the only and last way to check it, it does seem to be, at least at this point, a sufficient backstop. But you are right. The fact that we don't readily share voter information between states is ridiculous. The fact that there isn't a command performance from the local Secretary of State that when someone that is a registered voter in Colorado or is even coming from Colorado has a previous Colorado address, that they go to Illinois, they go to Montana, they go to California, that we don't have a process to get information from that state when that person registers to vote to come back to Colorado to say, hey, check the list, make sure this person isn't on the list anymore. Yes, that is screwed up. Yes, absolutely. That is an absolute mess.
But I got to agree with Jeff in that I just don't see the problem in having one system that works for all 50 states. Yes, I'm a believer in states' rights on a lot of things, but when this is at the national level for an election and that type of thing, I don't see what having one system, a proven system that works, that every state would utilize for this type of an important event.
There are two things in this, Neil, and I can understand that, and I appreciate the phone call, and I understand where you're feeling. Is the problem that we have is, one, it's outlined in the Constitution that each state gets to affect the rules about their own election. Two, you would need Congress to change the rules or give the president the power. And so that's the idea. The other part that I just find ironic is all of the small government states' rights people coming in to say, no, we need to do this. It seems to me to be more about perception and goals than it is about the other.
Well, I think the current system we have set up right now, blue states get to do it in a way that ensures blue state victories. Red states get to do it to ensures red state victories. Is this best for federal elections? Well, the debate will continue. We'll have to do it tomorrow. Thank you to all of the folks that joined us. We'll be right back at it tomorrow morning. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leaders. News Talk 710, KNUS.